Hello everybody, today we are going to learn about ecosystems. So by the end of this lesson, hopefully we will all know what does the word ecosystem mean, what are the different parts within an ecosystem, and how do they all work together to stay alive. So first we want to define the word ecosystem. So what does it mean? Well, eco means environment or part of nature, and system means a group of things working together. So from that, an ecosystem could be a group of things in nature working together, and their goal is to stay alive, at least for the living things. So now we want to define the parts within an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is mainly made up of two groups, and so that's biotic things and abiotic things. So biotic things are living things and abiotic things are non-living things. So some examples of biotic things would be grass, trees, and just plants in general, along with animals. So within animals we could do insects, birds, fish, and even super tiny animals like plankton, for example. And plankton are little things in the ocean that some fish eat. Abiotic things are going to be all of the non-living factors, or just things that affect the environment. So this could be anything that you depend on for life. So sunlight, wind, weather, the soil, the air, and for animals, it would also shelter matters. And so you need all of these things to stay alive, for not just stay alive, but also to even be able to have plants grow there, right? So things like sunlight, air, soil, and water, which is actually a big one. You need all of that for plants to grow, for example, and you need plants to grow for animals to be able to eat them. So that's why something that's non-living can affect a group of living things. So now we want to talk a little bit more about how living things are interacting or working together in an ecosystem. So let's start, for example, with this food chain that we have, but we have to fill it in. So first we have the sun, and so the sun is not exactly part of the food chain because nobody can eat the sun, obviously, but it does give energy to plants. So for example, this patch of grass, and the sun allows this patch of grass to grow. This sun right now is an abiotic factor because it's not non-living, but it's a crucial part of this ecosystem. It's very important. So this grass can be eaten by this rabbit, and so that is the energy from the sun being transferred to the grass, and then the grass is transferring its energy to the rabbit when the rabbit eats it. And then the same thing happens with the fox. Then the fox can eat it for fuel, for energy, and then this eagle might swoop down and eat that fox. So this is a basic example of a food chain. And food chain is just any system or any group where the animals and plants are depending on each other for energy and for nutrients, right? So even though they are eating each other, it might seem like it's in a rabbit's or its best interest to get rid of all of the foxes. But that's not necessarily true, because let's say we get rid of the foxes, well then now the eagles have nothing to eat, and also because there are so many rabbits, all of these rabbits are going to eat up the grass, and they're going to eat it so fast, and there's going to be so many of them that eventually they're going to eat the grass faster than it can grow back, and the rabbits might actually not be able to survive anymore and then get wiped out themselves, right? So food chains and ecosystems are in very delicate balances, and it's important to keep those balances straight. And that's why sometimes when humans hunt too much, bring a new species somewhere, we can ruin an ecosystem like that. But we will talk more about adaptation and how ecosystems will change in the next lesson. Now that we know how different living things can interact in a food chain and how non-living things can affect an ecosystem because the factors for life depend on those non-living things, now we're able to draw an ecosystem with both abiotic and biotic factors. So let's start here with this pond, and you can follow along on a piece of paper. You can draw with anything you like. So here we have the pond, which is the water is abiotic because it's not living, and all of this grass around here is biotic because it is living. So now we can add in some more abiotic factors. This sun is very important for life, and these rocks could be shelter for insects, for example. Now, next we want to add leaves and plants. And so now these plants can grow thanks to the water and the air and the sun and the soil. And so these abiotic factors are all in a good place for life to start. And now that there's plants, this ecosystem is able to support animals that eat the plants or eat each other in the ecosystem. So now here we have our complete pond ecosystem, and we can start to label it. So for example, something we might want to do is draw some food chains here. We can start with a food chain from the sun, let's say, to these plants. Well, in these plants, there might be a lot of insects, and from these insects you can have a frog eat the insects, maybe the ducks eat the insects, or the birds, right? And if we want to look at an ecosystem in the water, this sun goes all the way into the pond to help grow these plants, and then maybe the fish eat them, or the ducks can eat from them too. Mostly probably the little animals that are around the plants. And now that these fish can support each other, or can live off the plants, well, that gives the opportunity for bigger fish to come and eat the smaller fish, right? So just in this small little ecosystem, we have a lot of different possibilities for food chains to form. And these are all in delicate balance. And so these animals are not exactly against each other. They're all working together and coexisting. And because they are all doing their own contributions, or they're all working to do something in the ecosystem can stay alive and healthy and in balance. So hopefully that helps explain what an ecosystem is, and now you're familiar with the parts of an ecosystem and how they work. And in our next lesson, we're going to learn more about the different types of ecosystems and how those abiotic factors can change the types of ecosystems. So for example, what if there's a lot of sunlight and it's hot? Or what if there's a lot of water or a lot of wind, a lot of rain? So like whenever you change something small like that, it can actually have big differences in the long term.